Chapter 091, Mischief. The group celebrated Ellie's first use of magic, where she didn't get any help from anybody with cake, and Sophia announced that she was going to teach the little princess for a while longer, and the others were free to do whatever they wanted. The blonde also gave Ellie some rules regarding the use of her new magic, including making her promise that she wasn't going to use it unsupervised for the time being. Alrighty, are you ready for more training? Sophia and Ellie were back in the cherry blossom forest when the blonde addressed the princess in a cheery voice. Why yes. The little tiger was very motivated. Perfect. She liked the enthusiasm. Blue's here to help, too. After saying this, the little parakeet appeared from one of the nearby trees and landed on the blonde's shoulder. Yay! For now, how about you show what you learned yesterday and make us a nice little water ball to warm up? Okay. Ellie immediately jumped at the prompt and began concentrating. In the end, it took her 2 extra tries to get it working as she wanted to, but she was able to recreate the success of the previous day. Focusing can be hard, huh? Sophia smiled at the princes after the 3rd attempt was successful. Good job. Very hard. Ellie nodded. Still super fun. Do you want to play with more water, or should we try some other things with magic? What other things can be done? The princess tilted her head. Whatever you can think of. She gave her a thumbs up. And then 3 more things on top of that. Wow. The little tiger seemed impressed. That's too many choices for Ellie, though. It's horrible, isn't it? The blonde felt her. Too many choices can make things actually worse, huh? Yes. How about we try playing around with wind for a change? It's fun, and you can use it for a lot of mischief. Ellie loves mischief. I'm not surprised about that. Sophia knew that she would like that. Let's give teaching you this a try. While saying so, the branches of the weeping cherries around them began to sway in the newly generated wind, and countless petals and cherry blossoms started to circle around the princess, almost trapping her in a whirlwind of pink. So pretty. Not bothered by the wind whatsoever, the little tiger just began catching the cherry blossoms moving around her midair. How does wind magic work? The same as the water one. Think, concentrate, let's go? She tilted her head. Let's go. The blonde nodded. Do you think you can do it? Ellie will try. That's the spirit. Sophia liked the enthusiasm. Remember, only a light breeze. You don't want to destroy all those lovely trees, right? Never. The princess shook her head. Perfect, then start preparing. She gave her a thumbs up. Blue and I will be watching you. Afterward, the blonde, with the parakeet on her shoulder, got comfortable under one of the trees while watching the little tiger. Can the wind keep going? Ellie wants to feel it more to try and do the same. The little tiger needed more inspiration. Sure thing. Sophia smiled at her. Blue, would you mind? Immediately after, the parakeet lightly flapped its wings, and something akin to a gentle summer breeze enveloped the whole area around them. Thank you. While Sophia and Blue were relaxing together, Ellie kept studying the wind around her. Moving around, spinning in circles, catching some floating petals here and there, and trying to become one with the wind, in her words, at least. Any luck? After around 20 minutes, the blonde tried to find out how it was going. Close. She looked at her with sparkling eyes. Ellie's this close to becoming the wind. The task was to create wind, not turn into it. The princess froze for a moment. Ellie got too into it. Happens all the time. Sophia felt her. Wanna try again? Yes. She nodded. This time Ellie will focus on the right thing. Do your best. Let's go again. Ellie immediately stretched out her arms to feel more of the wind around her. Her eyebrows scrunched up. Did you notice something? Maybe? The princess seemed a little confused. Tell me what it might be. The blonde encouraged her to go on. Ellie feels like the wind comes from somewhere. Normally, the wind is just there and is windy for a little bit, but this. Ellie doesn't know, feels weird. Try to focus on that somewhere. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Find the place the wind comes from. Okay. Closing her eyes, the princess blindly walked around the area to try and find the source of the wind Blue was creating. Oh. After stumbling around for around 5 minutes and almost crashing into 4 trees later, she eventually stopped roughly 30 meters to the left of the blonde. What did you find? The blonde looked at her while gently petting the parakeet that moved to her hand, which she was holding up. Found it. She opened her eyes again. Yeah, but what did you find? Windy magic. The princess pointed at an empty area between 2 cherry blossoms. It's coming from there. What makes you think so? Sophia wanted more details. The wind isn't any stronger there, is it? It feels like magic here. The same tingly or powerful feeling Ellie had when she first felt it and used it on her own. It's strong here. The wind also goes in all directions and not the same in this place. That's a start. She was okay with that reply. Study the area a little more and try to get a better hold of the feeling. Then, do your best and replicate it to make your own wind. Still, always remember to take care of your concentration and not to overdo it for now. Will do. Ellie immediately walked right into the middle of the area she had been pointing at. There, she lifted her arms as if trying to grab something out of the air. Naturally, she had no success with that. Afterward, it seemed like she started concentrating on some once more. It's so fun watching someone who has no idea how magic works play around with it and trying to figure out what's going on. Sophia was having a great time. In response to that, Blue looked straight at the blonde and nodded a few times. What's with that reaction? She didn't like how the bird was looking at her, but Blue just reacted with a slightly sassy-sounding chirp. Wow. While Sophia was being teased by a bird, Ellie suddenly made some tremendous progress and got loud. A massive gust of air shot from her hand and blew away almost all the cherry blossoms on the tree in front of her, causing a small tornado of pink petals. Her expression then turned a little awkward. Someone overdid it a little, huh? The blonde smiled at the princess. But Ellie didn't use more than she could feel. She started pouting. Why so different? The magic you felt was the source for the entire wind in the area all around us. Sophia lightly shook her head. You used the same amount and instantly shot it away from your hand. Because of that, it was much more powerful. Oh. The little tiger nodded a few times. Ellie hadn't thought about that. Don't worry about it. She wasn't upset. My suggestion for the future is not to try and copy simple things like the amount of magic. Always add details and think of the result while using magic. Thank you. The princess was happy about the guidance. Ellie will remember this from now. Perfect. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Do you want to try again? This time, maybe a little gentler, though. Of course. The little tiger reacted with a big nod. She was still highly motivated. That's the spirit. The princess immediately returned to concentrating on the task and another 10 minutes quickly passed. During that time, it seemed like she was making great progress because her expression turned rather confident before long. Ellie gets it now. While announcing these words, a gentle breeze formed in front of her and picked up countless cherry blossoms that lay on the ground from the earlier accident. Then, the wind carried them over to the little tiger and showered her in petals for a little while as they circled around her. Yay! Wow! Sophia looked honestly impressed. Blue also was using its wings to clap. That's amazing. Good job. She enjoyed being praised. Magic is so fun. It sure is. The blonde thought so, too. Blue also nodded along. You are very talented, too. You're learning it so fast. Yay! The princess got even happier. Sophia was proud of her. Should we jump right into the next lesson? Ellie's hungry. She had other plans. A very valid argument. The blonde nodded. A good one, too. She could never say no to getting something to eat. Shall we head home for a bit and have lunch? Lunch. Having decided to take a break from Ellie's magic training to get some food, Sophia opened one of her portals, and the two returned to the cottage for the time being. Chapter 092, Sisterly Bonds. Sophia's magic classes to teach Ellie continued for another day, and the princess managed to learn the basics of air-based magic by being able to create her own gusts of wind. It turned out that the little tiger not only had a lot of it but also was very talented at using magic. Do you want to keep going with air and wind, or should we try something different? The duo returned to the cherry blossom forest, and Sophia wanted to know what to do next. Ellie wants to learn some mischief with wind. Her eyes started sparkling. Something I can annoy Anna with. After all, she loved her older sister. Gladly. The blonde saw no issues with her request. Just to be sure, you just want to mess with her a little, right? You don't want to make her actually angry? Yes. She agreed. Ellie wants to be a menace, but doesn't want Anna to hate her. You want to be a proper sister, got it. As a fellow sister, Sophia was fully behind the plan. What's possible with wind to be annoying? The princess didn't want to waste any time. Well, Blue is the expert when it comes to harassing others with wind magic, so we have the best teacher on hand already. She pointed at the little parakeet who had gotten comfortable on Ellie's shoulder after their lunch. Oi. Not liking that, the bird got upset and flapped its wings once. Instantly after, a massive wall of air hit the blonde and pushed her several meters back, while also liberating 2 trees of all their cherry blossoms. Oh. The little tiger clapped her hands a couple of times. See? Sophia returned to them and smiled at her. Blue's the bird to be when it comes to learning wind-related things. Good to know. The princess nodded. Still, Ellie wants to annoy Anna, not make her go fly. Fair enough. The blonde was happy that she knew where to draw the line. Blue, teach her some fun things that are more on the harmless side. After hearing that, the parakeet used its wing to salute before taking off from Ellie's shoulder and landing on the ground between the tigers. A second later, a gust of air hit the blonde's face and disheveled her entire hairdo. To some degree, at least, as she always had rather wild hair. Messing with hair. Ellie's eyes were sparkling. Very annoying. Very, not entirely happy about the situation, Sophia used her hands to entangle her hair and roughly put it back into shape. I wonder if Kira buys it if I blame the bird for her daughter's new skill, oi. Another gust of wind hit her. Blue did not approve of her plan. Ellie promises to only use mischief on Anna. The princess instinctively knew that she could end up in trouble otherwise. Well, that could work. Sophia smiled at her. Phew. She looked relieved. And maybe Papa if he ignores Ellie too much again. Absolutely deserved. The blonde had no intention of stopping her there. Kira would agree there, too. Yay. She clapped her hands in anticipation. Ellie can't wait to dash, huh? She suddenly turned around. Something touched Ellie's shoulder just now, ei. The princess then looked behind her over her other shoulder before jumping back on the spot. Again. Hee. Sophia let out a small laugh while Blue also chirped a few times. What? The little tiger didn't like that. Ellie definitely felt something. Did you forget the part where we're teaching you mischief with magic right now? The blonde chuckled again while smiling at her. Blue used air to imitate someone tapping your shoulder. The parakeet nodded in agreement. Oh. She sounded a little embarrassed in return. That's a good one. Having seen 2 types of mischievous wind magic she liked a lot, Ellie seemed raring to go and immediately jumped right into training again. She kept going for a little over an hour and quickly made some progress, thanks to Blue's help. I'm not so sure about this, Chief. The better the princess was getting, the more Sophia was suffering as her test subject. Her hair had been turned into a complete mess, and even her clothes had started to become disheveled by the constant wind attacks she had been receiving the past hour. Ellie is very sure, though. She disagreed with the blonde. I'm sure you are. The taller tiger lightly rolled her eyes. Yes. The little one was full of vigor. All right, fine. She couldn't win against her. You've already gotten plenty of experience with ruining my hair, though. How about you focus on the shoulder tap trick for now? I'd like a break if that's okay. Okay. Ellie could agree with that and jumped right into training once more. I'm way too soft. Enjoying the break while the princess was getting ready, Sophia let out a soft sigh while trying to fix her destroyed hair, which had started to look more like a bird's nest thanks to having been subjected to so much wind lately. Afterward, the princess played around with the blonde for another half an hour, where she constantly tried to use short bursts of gentle wind next to Sophia's shoulder to make it feel like someone was there. Unfortunately, every now and then, Ellie misjudged her strength, and a harder blow hit the blonde, ruining her freshly fixed hair again. Another 30 minutes passed, and after Blue showed the princess how it was done a few more times, Ellie eventually managed to recreate it relatively well, to the point where someone unassuming would turn around to check what had just tried to touch them. Ellie wants to see Anna and try her new skills. In higher spirits than ever after having finished her training, the princess couldn't wait to see her sister to be a proper menace to her. Let's go. Gladly. Sophia happily agreed to pushing the problem she created, Ellie, to someone else. Wasting no time whatsoever, she opened a portal to the cottage, and they quickly stepped through it. Back at home, the trio, Blue was on the blonde's shoulder, went to the living room, where they ran into the tall tiger and the others. Yay! Seeing her sister, Ellie immediately welcomed Anna with an air blast to her face, causing her bangs and twin tails to become a tangled and fuzzy mess in an instant. Oi! Naturally, she wasn't very fond of this. What was that for? Mischief. The mood of the little princess was excellent. Yup, that's about what I expected when I heard that Sophia's going to be her teacher. Ari, who was also in the living room, wasn't overly surprised about what had just happened. Why me, though? Anna didn't like her treatment. One of the many jobs of the older sister is to endure the mischief of the younger one. Steph, sitting next to Chloe on one of the sofas, had an easy explanation for her. She's speaking from experience, too. Sophia nodded a few times. I sure am. Also, you're not the only one. The blonde then pointed at herself and her ruined hair while looking at the taller tiger. She used me as a test subject for the entire day. I'm not sure if that makes it any better. In fact, Anna actually started pouting after hearing that. You do know that Kira will kill you when she finds out that you taught her baby nothing but mischief, yes? The jaguar slowly shook her head as she stared at Sophia. It was Blue that did the teaching. She instantly pointed at the bird on her shoulder. Oh ouch. She then was immediately hit on the cheek by the parakeet's wing. Yeah, she's totally going to buy that. Ari just rolled her eyes in return. Ellie also promised me that she only ever uses magic to do mischief when the target is Anna. Exactly. The little princess nodded in agreement. Or when Papa ignores Ellie too much. Well, I guess that should be okay. The jaguar scratched her cheek. Ignoring Ellie is a crime, and messing with one's sister is apparently to be expected, too. Eehee. The short tiger liked that even Ari was on her side. Ellie, my dear. Anna then kneeled down to get on the same level as the short tiger. You do know that sisters messing with each other is a two-way interaction? Two-way? She tilted her head. Hey. Ellie was suddenly trapped in a gentle whirlwind that completely messed up her hair in an instant. I can use magic, too. The tall tiger showed her a smug grin. Unfair. Ellie didn't like that. How so? Anna didn't see an issue. I'm sorry, Ellie, but that's how it works. The other sisters, Sophia and Steph, had bad news for the little princess. She hadn't expected such a betrayal. That's how it is. The tall tiger smiled at her sister. If you want to mess with me, prepare to get messed with. Sophia, blue. The little princess suddenly faced the duo. Ellie needs to learn better and more, Miss Chef. Sure thing. The blonde gave her a thumbs up, and the parakeet saluted her with one of its wings. Having fun? Ari nudged Anna's side. I saw how you, even while complaining, were smiling the entire time. It's a lot better than having gotten the cold shoulder from her for most of last year. She enjoyed the actual sisterly interaction with Ellie a lot. Fair enough. The group kept chatting a little longer about the wonders of sisterly bonds before it was eventually time to bring Ellie back home to have her rest. While she had been energetic until the very end, it had still been quite an eventful and tiring day for her, after all. Chapter 093, Playing the Long Game. Ellie spent the entire day training her newly awakened magic and decided that she wanted to learn some tricks to satiate her mischievous side because she wanted to learn wind-based magic to mess with her older sister. It was a great success, but she forgot about the part where Anna could also use magic and immediately got back to her. Ellie wants to make a house. Sophia, blue, and the princess were back in the cherry blossom forest the following day, and the little tiger started with a grand request. Come again? The blonde felt like she had missed something. The parakeet on her shoulder also tilted its head to the side. One day, Ellie will live here in paradise, so she needs a house. She gestured all around her while saying so. I thought we came to the conclusion that Kira wouldn't ever allow this? Sophia vaguely remembered her wanting to live amongst the cherry blossoms before. But once Ellie's Anna's age, Mama can't say no any longer. Oh, we're playing the long game, huh? Sophia was starting to understand. Yes. She just nodded. When that happens, Ellie needs a place to stay. They grow up so fast. The blonde looked touched. Also, not a feeling I should have yet. She then seemed rather conflicted over the fact she got emotional over a child growing up. So, can we make a house? Ellie was very motivated about her plan. Well, I'm not sure if we'll be able to build a house anytime soon, but how about we teach you some earth-based magic for the time being? While saying so, the three were surrounded by earthen walls that shot out of the ground. You can do stuff like that with it. Walls are the start of any good house, right? Let's go. The princess was in favor of the suggestion. Not wanting her cherry blossom forest to be affected by the upcoming earth-related training, Sophia decided it was time to relocate to a different place. Alright, we can go wild here. Once they exited her portal, Sophia gestured at the plain grassland all around them. There were some trees scattered here and there, but it was mostly just green as far as the eye could see, together with some colorful flowers mixed in everywhere. I did this when I was bored. It's nice looking, but nothing of value would be lost if we used it as a training ground. Ellie just lost 20% of her motivation. The little tiger was already missing the cherry blossoms. Surrounded by pink was so much better. I don't disagree, but are you willing to risk those beautiful trees while training with earth magic? A good point. The princess saw the issue. That would be bad. The plain suddenly sounds a lot better, doesn't it? Yes. She agreed. Okay, what does Ellie have to do to learn earth? The same as usual. Sophia smiled at her. Ah, makes sense. Ellie didn't seem surprised. Still, can Sophia and Blue make some things with earth magic? Ellie wants to get a better feeling on it. Of course. The blonde, together with Blue, nodded in return. Immediately after, numerous earthen walls and pillars shot out of the ground around them. If you need any more help, ask away, but for now, have fun. That's Ellie's specialty. She was quite talented at having fun. Mine, too. Sophia smiled at her before getting comfortable under one of the few nearby trees, and Blue also joined her by sitting down on her shoulder. The biggest downside of the grassland was the full exposure of her domain's all-white default texture, so they wanted at least a little cover from it. While the two were relaxing, Ellie was busy circling around the dirt pillars they had created for her. It doesn't feel very different from usual dirt? She eventually tilted her head while looking confused. Not very magic-like. Ah, that's because the earth magic we used earlier works a little differently from the air and water-related things we taught you before. How so? Before, we used magic to create water and wind. Sophia made a slight pause to let her think about it. Now, we used it to move it. We simply pushed the dirt up from below the ground. MHH. Oh. The princess needed a second. Does that mean magic cannot make dirt? Only move it? No, the blonde and blue shook their heads. You can create dirt. In fact, everything around here has been created with magic, dirt included. Sophia simply gestured all around her on the plane they were in. It's just a different way of interacting with magic. Ellie understands. She nodded a couple of times. How does that work? The little tiger may have understood the concept, but she still had no idea what it meant. Imagine grabbing or pushing the dirt, but without actually touching it with your hands. Use your magic power to do it while thinking about the shape you want it to turn into. MHRRMM, the expression of the princess scrunched up. Ellie thinks she needs a little bit of thinking to do that. Sounds weird. Many things I say sound weird. The blonde was used to it already. Play around with the idea a little and see what happens. Okay. She had nothing against weird ideas and immediately focused on the pillar of dirt again. It's so much harder without any magic to feel. Do your best. Sophia just cheered her on some more. Ellie always does her best. Saying so, she kneeled down and put her hands on the grass below. Wait. Ellie wasn't supposed to touch it with her hands. She immediately jumped up again. You don't have to treat it so literally. The blonde let out a small chuckle. It's okay to touch it like that to get a better feeling. You're just not supposed to dig a hole, form the dirt into a pillar, and call it magic afterward. Oh. The princess nodded a few times. Much easier then. She immediately returned to touching the ground while having a concentrated expression. Ellie kept studying the grass and dirt for about half an hour while touching it in various places to see if she could feel anything that would help with her magic. Do you need some more help? Sophia was wondering if the little tiger was making any progress in her eyes. So, Faya said that Ellie should use her magic to grab or move dirt, right? Something like that, yes. She nodded. Like when you were controlling the water or air, just that the dirt is already there. Ellie has an idea, then. Saying so, the princess suddenly made a fist and punched the ground below her. Immediately upon making contact with the dirt, her fist dug into it and pushed away the ground in a roughly 2-meter radius around her. There first were some ripple or wave-like motions at the top, before everything finally caved in. The result of this made the little tiger fall into a 1-meter deep hole she ended up making herself. "Wo, are you okay?" Sophia jumped on her feet with a worried expression. Up until now, she had been lying under a tree, and the hole that had the same depth as Ellie was tall. From her point of view, it looked like she had been swallowed whole. Better than ever. Ellie only lifted one of her arms out of the hole and gave her a thumbs up. Don't surprise me like that. The blonde got closer to the hole, kneeled down on the edge of it, and lifted the princess out of it. What was that superhero-like move for? She felt some sort of familiarity between her punching the ground so hard it split open and some of the superhero movies she had seen in the past. Superhero? The princess tilted her head. Don't mind me. She had no plans of explaining it to her. Anyway, care to explain your thought process here? The taller tiger pointed at the hole. Ellie wanted to look cool. Her reason was simple, but perfectly valid. You definitely succeeded in that. Sophia had to give her that. Please explain what you did, though. While she saw what happened, the blonde still wanted to hear it from her. Ellie used her magic to push away dirt around her fist. She sounded extremely proud of herself. Was thinking and concentrating about the dirt going away from Ellie's fist as she hit the ground. Kind of like you wanted the dirt to behave like water? Yes. The little tiger gave her a big nod. That's quite something. The blonde seemed honestly impressed. Did you want to create a hole this massive and deep, though? And no comment. She quickly turned her head away. Ahaha. Sophia had to chuckle at her reaction. What if it hadn't worked out, though? Hitting the ground so hard surely would have hurt your hand. Ellie was very confident of herself. She gave her another thumbs up. No danger, no gain. The blonde needed a small pause. I don't disagree with the message, but you being in danger is playing with my life. Kira will end me if something happens to you. I wouldn't blame her either, because I absolutely earned it. Mama doesn't need to know, does she? It will be secret between Ellie and Sophia. The princess showed her a bright smile. Okay? Okay. This girl is dangerous. And she only just turned 4. She was worried about the princess's future, or rather, about everyone around her, because no one would be able to ever go against her. Let's go. The little tiger didn't care about her monologue. Ellie wants to learn more. This time, Ellie wants to learn something from Sophia, from start to finish. Doing as told, the blonde let out a small sigh but then gladly continued to teach the princess a bit more earth-related magic to keep the training going at a decent pace before coming up with something new. Chapter 094, Overwhelmed by Choice. Ellie's training continued, and the princess managed to use her first bits of earth-related magic in a way that surprised even Sophia, treating dirt the same way as water and giving it the same properties. The only thing the blonde could complain about was the little tiger's recklessness because she was playing with her life, as Kira would kill Sophia if anything happened to her baby. Do you think you understand now? They were still on the massive plain inside Sophia's domain, where the blonde smiled at the princess while looking at the roughly 50 pillars of dirt and grass around them, each between 3 and 10 meters tall and 1 to 3 meters wide. They almost seemed like the overgrown and decayed remnants of an ancient building. Ellie's the queen of pillars. The little tiger sounded incredibly proud of herself. It's time for something else, though. Nothing but pillars can get a little boring, huh? Yes. She nodded a few times. What do you want to learn instead? No idea. The princess shook her head. Magic is so much that Ellie is overwhelmed by choice. I know that feeling. It wasn't a new feeling for the blonde. Magic can just about do anything, so whatever idea you have, there's a chance we can try it. That's too many options for a child. Handy excuse you have there. Sophia lightly rolled her eyes. Yep. The little tiger thought so, too. Ellie already learned water, wind, and dirt. What other big ones are there? You want to get a taste of all the basics? Yes. That might be a little complicated. The blonde scratched her cheek. The very basics are the water, air, earth, and fire elements or categories. At the moment, Kira banned me from teaching you fire because it's the most dangerous out of them. No fun. Ellie started pouting. Beyond that, there are light and dark magic, as well as nature and uncategorized magic. She simply ignored her complaints. Light is too advanced at the moment, and I won't be teaching you dark magic because it's bad magic. Bad? Yeah, it's magic to be mean. Sophia tried to put it in easy terms. Not the fun type of being mean, but actually evil in a way that hurts people very easily. Ellie hates dark magic. Though rebellious at times, she was a good girl, after all. Perfect response. The blonde smiled at her. Nature and uncategorized could be fun. What's uncategorized? The princess wasn't a fan of the word. You know, air is air, water is water, fire is fire. Basic elements and easy to group. Uncategorized is magic that doesn't really fit into any other groups. It's completely freestyle. Ellie loves freestyling. Should we try magic with fewer rules or restrictions? That's what it basically is. Let's go. The little tiger got excited. We can combine it with nature, too. In fact, I used both of them to create the cherry blossom forest. Let's go. She got even more excited. They used a portal to relocate again, and Sophia guided the princess to a mostly unused part of her domain. There were only a few cherry saplings together, with a small patch of grass in the middle of the usual all-white nothingness. What's this? Ellie pointed at the bit of vegetation in front of them. A little project I prepared for you. Oh? Ellie seemed interested already. You see, all the amazing places I showed you in my domain that the others made started like this. She pointed at the few saplings. They used their magic to grow them into beautiful trees and also expanded the areas to the sizes you saw. Wow. The eyes of the little tiger were sparkling. Unbelievable that this turned into that. Magic is the bestest. Sure is. Sophia agreed while Blue nodded a couple of times on her shoulder. How about you give it a shot, too? She smiled at the princess. I prepared those cherry blossoms and weeping cherries for you to make your own place. WAOH. Her excitement only grew even more. Ellie, can't wait. Unless you prefer to play with some other trees instead. Cherries. She didn't. Perfect. What does Ellie have to do? She was already excitedly circling around the sapling with sparkling eyes. Quick. Calm down, my dear. No. The princess had no intentions of doing so. Ahaha. Sophia had to chuckle at that. This is a bit of a weird one. On the one hand, I'd definitely put it into the nature-related category of magic, but it's actually more of an uncategorized type of use case. Ellie has no idea what any of that means. It was too cryptic for her. Yeah, that's fair. It's not like Sophia ever really understood the category thing herself. In the end, it's super easy, though. You only have to drown the saplings in your magic. Then, they drink it all up and grow a lot. Oh. She liked that explanation a lot more. How big can the trees get? How big do you want them to be? The blonde smiled at her. Because that's how big they can get. That's too much power for Ellie. She was immediately overwhelmed. It's great, isn't it? Sophia kept smiling. The more magic you use on them, the bigger they grow. The surroundings will be affected more, as well. Makes sense. The little tiger nodded a few times. Then, if Ellie uses up all of her magic for today, what would happen? You'd get very tired, but the saplings would grow into a forest so big that you'd need a week to find your way out of it. They would be so tall that you'd hurt your neck looking up at them, as well. Worth it. It seemed like she was okay with those side effects, for the greater good. Please teach Ellie how to give the cherries her magic. That's the spirit. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Let's see, how do I explain this? She tilted her head. You already were right about saying to give your magic to the trees. You don't actually use your magic on them. What does that mean? Ellie needed more information. What's the difference? Before, you used your magic to create or control something, right? Yes. She nodded. That's not the case when you want to grow plants. The blonde shook her head. It's not? No, it's actually even easier than that. You only have to release your magic, and the trees soak it up themselves before growing strong and healthy. Oh. The princess nodded a few times. Wait, then how does Ellie control how big something should grow? It's mostly based on how much magic you release and how dense you make it. For example, if you put it all in one spot, the tree right next to it will become massive. If you only release a little here and there, they won't grow as big, but they will spread out more. That makes sense. It looked like the little tiger was understanding the concept. Any other questions? Yes. Judging by her strong reaction, it seemed rather important for the princess. What is it? How does any of that work? It was a rather substantial question. Ellie knows how to use magic now, but how does she just release it? You only have to concentrate for it. Think about wanting your magic to leave your body, and you should soon start to feel weaker. That would be your magic leaving, and you can easily feel when it's enough. That really sounds easy. The excitement of the princess rose again. Can Ellie go wild with the growing? or does she have to be careful? Ellie wants the biggest cherry in the world. In my domain, so this place with the stupid white sky, you can go as wild as you want with it. She gave her a thumbs up. At home, you have to take care, though. The blonde sounded a little more serious. If you grow a tree in the garden of the castle, it might become so big that it could destroy the castle. That would be bad. The little tiger saw the issue. That means Ellie should train here to see how much cherry blossoms she can grow in the garden at home? She paused for a moment. Sure. Sophia decided that it wasn't her problem. After all, she did tell the princess to be careful. Whether or not Kira would think so, too, was another question entirely. Yay! The little tiger clapped her hands. For now, Ellie needs to learn how big a tree gets when she uses all of her magic on one tree. Yep, it's important to find out what your limits are. She smiled at her. That will probably be the last lesson for today, though. Once you've released all your magic, you have to rest and let it regenerate. For you, that can easily take a full day. It can be quite tiring, too. That's okay. She didn't seem to mind. If Ellie can make a massive cherry, one of her biggest dreams come true, so waiting just a day is more than fine. Alrighty. Let's go. The princess walked up to one of the cherry saplings and stretched out her hand before closing her eyes to concentrate. It's looking good. After a few minutes, she noticed that the magical particles began to leave the princess's body through her hand. Ellie can feel it, too. She nodded a couple of times while she kept going for another 5 minutes, before opening her eyes again. Okay, Ellie's done, but nothing happened. She was bothered by the fact that the sapling still looked the same. It will take a while. Sophia tried to calm her down. The sapling is currently soaking up all of your magic and will use it to start growing soon. It usually takes about a day before it's fully done, though. When we come back tomorrow, we'll see how amazing it turned out. Ellie's not good with patience. It didn't calm her down in the slightest. How about we go and get something to eat? Okay. Thankfully, it was rather easy to divert her attention. She was taking a lot after Sophia, after all. Doing as told, they returned to the cottage for a break and had some food together. Chapter 095, Model Student. Sophia taught Ellie how to grow saplings into overgrown trees by using their raw magic on them. Naturally, the princess got super excited about the idea of making her own massive cherry tree and couldn't wait to try it out. As she was allowed to go all out in the blonde's domain, she immediately decided to use all of her available magic on one single sapling. Hurry up. On the following day, Sophia returned to the castle in the capital to pick up Ellie, but the impatient-sounding princess was already waiting for her. So, Fi is late. I missed you, too. She just lightly waved at her. I probably would have been late even if I had come before you woke up, right? Yes. There was no winning with the little tiger. How is the training going? Kira was also with her and looked at the blonde. Hasn't she told you already? Sophia tilted her head. She tried to, I guess? The queen scratched her cheek in return. Unfortunately, she was way too excited for me to understand anything. Ah. She could see that being an issue. She's an absolute model student and listens to every word I say. She literally soaks up everything I teach her, as well. I feared that being the case. Hey. Sophia got loud. That's a good thing if you ask me. I generally agree, but you're still the wildest magic user in the whole capital, and your way of doing things is something else entirely. Kira got a little awkward. I'm just worried about my baby. That's so terribly rude. The blonde started pouting. I'll have you know that Mira, yes, the overseer of magic, is my friend. She recently praised me for my way of using magic, too. My teachings are overseer approved. It can't get much better than that. There was nothing the queen could say here. To be fair, she also called me weak, making my position as a teacher a little less convincing, but... You? Weak? Kira couldn't believe her. Well, when compared to her, at least. I'm nowhere near overseer levels, after all. Her voice turned a little distant towards the end. For the longest time, Sophia was happy to know that there was a massive distance between her and the real overseers because she didn't want to become one, but working on her domain made her realize that having a lot of magic would be pretty nice. That is fairly reassuring. The queen smiled at her. Don't get me wrong, I'm eternally grateful for your work, but Ellie's still my baby, so nothing will ever be good enough for her. I'll always find something to complain or be concerned about. You'll understand once you become a mother yourself. If anything, I'm concerned over how much I understand it already. The blonde awkwardly scratched her cheek. It's a few years too early for me to understand those feelings. I look forward to the day when it isn't too early for you anymore. Shush. Sophia didn't like the grin on her face. I wonder if years will be the final answer, though. The queen wasn't the least bit intimidated by the blonde. You do know that I'd need to get pregnant in the next few months for it to stay under a year, you know? She glared at her. I do, in fact, know how pregnancies work. Kira, a mother of 3, just nodded. Then leave me be. It will happen when I want it to happen at the earliest. Fair enough. As she was mostly just teasing her, the queen wasn't that disappointed. Thankfully, for you and Maya, accidents are fairly unlikely as well. I mean, there's usually nothing that, you know? All of the fun, none of the responsibility. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Ellie wants to have fun, too. The little princess suddenly joined the conversation even though she obviously had no idea what they were talking about. No. The two instantly synced and vehemently shook their heads. It's 40 years too early for that. They were a little overprotective. Boo. How about we get back to the previous topic? Kira remembered her daughter again. Looking at the blonde, she asked, what precisely did she learn so far? Well, I already told you about the basics in water and air magic I taught her, right? Sophia looked back at her. Yes, when you returned her before. She nodded. Since then, she also got quite good with earth magic, and yesterday, we dabbled a little in uncategorized magic. Uncategorized? Kira got loud. Already? She's a talented one. Sophia smiled at the little tiger. Ellie is the bestest. The princess looked incredibly proud as she faced her mother. You sure are. The blonde gently patted her head. Eehee. Wow. The queen needed a moment. This is really something. To be fair, Anna can do all that, too, so both of your daughters are amazing, but Ellie being just 4 adds a lot of weight to it. The new tiger generation is something else. Kira sounded amazed. You're in your own league, but both my daughters, even before you boosted Anna, are more promising than almost any of our ancestors. Ellie's even handily beating the founders. Ellie's the bestest, after all. The little princess only cared about the part that was interesting to her. Ellie especially is more powerful than the norm, but isn't the actual reason for this simply because they're using magic closer to its full potential? Sophia tilted her head. Both are undoubtedly amazing, and I love them, but isn't it more of a case of every predecessor just being, well, bad? She was extra direct today. I don't want to be disrespectful, but these achievements mostly feel so massive because no one else really put any meaningful work into magic before. This kingdom could have advanced to levels incomparable to today's standards hundreds of years ago. The queen went silent. I have no words. She needed a moment. It is still true, though. It's the dawn of a new generation, no matter the circumstances. Many things will change, and most will hopefully be for the better. I can agree with that. Sophia nodded a few times. Ellie will change things for the worse if she can't go and see her new cherry blossoms soon. The little tiger was finally reaching the end of her patience. I guess that marks the end of our conversation. The blonde just shrugged. You might be right. The queen also knew that there was no winning against her. Do you want to come with us and see what your daughter created? She smiled at Kira. Gladly. Sophia opened a quick portal to the area she and Ellie played together the day before and guided the two through before following after them. What do you think, Ellie? They arrived at a slightly elevated area next to where the princess had released her magic, and the blonde smiled at her while pointing toward a massive forest. WAOH. There was only one viable reaction for her to have. With sparkling eyes, she was taking in the countless pink and purple weeping cherries, with some regular cherry blossom trees mixed in here and there. It went on for kilometers in each direction, but something else had hogged most of her attention. In the middle of everything, there was a massive dark purple weeping cherry that triumphantly towered over everything else. It was around 500 meters tall and more than twice as wide, easily exceeding a whole kilometer in width. The hanging branches of the main tree were so long as well that they almost reached all the way to the ground. What is this place? Kira was in awe as she took in the scenery. It's a cherry forest Ellie grew with her magic. The bestest forest. The eyes of the princess were still sparkling. There's just no way. The queen shook her head. Forests need multiple dozens of years to grow to such a size. Not to mention the mind-bogglingly massive one in the middle that goes against everything that is common sense. Your common sense, not the one we go by. Sophia shook her head as well, but for a different reason. Magic makes a lot of things possible, including growing such a scenery overnight. Are you seriously trying to tell me that my 4-year-old daughter created this place? She simply gestured all around her. The place itself is mine, but Ellie created most of the forest. The blonde corrected her a little. I gave her a small patch of grass with a handful of cherry saplings. Flora has the ability to absorb magic and use it to rapidly accelerate its growth. So, when you release your own internal magic without using it, this happens. She pointed at the forest again. You saw the jungle around the cottage, right? That one was grown in a similar way. That is way too overpowered. Kira raised her voice. You could reshape entire tracts of lands with this. Countries. Sophia lightly corrected her again. With enough magic, it will scale limitlessly. It simply keeps going as long as you feed it. In fact, at some point, it starts generating magic and feeds itself to grow. This is insane. For once, I actually want to agree there. The blonde nodded. It is amazing, though. Magic is amazing. Do you want to see me at my current full power? Full power? The queen looked confused. What I created in this time without holding using magic like I constantly do when I'm outside and out in your kingdom. This place here is basically my kingdom, together with my rules. One of them is the ban on holding back. You at full power? Kira shivered once. Will my brain be able to comprehend this? How much are you usually holding back when we're around? I saw the stuff you did, so it can't be that much, right? How about we go on a little tour? Sophia showed her a cheeky grin before opening another portal in front of them. This will be fun. It was a spontaneous decision, but the blonde decided to show the queen just how unable to control she really is, and how everyone should be happy that she has this place all to herself to let loose every now and then. Chapter 096, Unbelievable Things. Kira came to visit the blonde's domain to see the progress of Ellie's magic teachings and what she had created there. Overwhelmed by the forest her daughter made, Sophia then decided to show the queen her powers inside the domain and what she's capable of when not holding back. She wanted her to realize just how massive the potential of magic really was, and how little they were utilizing it. Alright, let's start with the less impressive-looking work of mine before we get to the main attraction. Exiting the portal, Sophia addressed the queen in an excited tone. Wa? Kira wasn't even able to finish a single word before she was overwhelmed by the sight in front of her, or rather, below her. The trio arrived on a 10-meter-wide rock platform that was floating in the air roughly 1 kilometer above ground. Looking down, a massive lush green plain stretched as far as the eye could see. Which, thanks to being so high up and there not being a curvature in Sophia's flat domain, was quite a lot. Multiple hundreds of kilometers a lot. It looked the same as the plane Ellie learned the first bit of earth magic, but it was simply going on forever. Every now and then, a couple of trees, as well as some smaller lakes in varying sizes, could be spotted here and there. Compared to the area where the princess did her training, there were many more colorful flowers spread all over the grass. So high. Ellie was a lot less shocked and excitedly took in the sights. So colorful, too. This is a bit of a side project of mine. Sophia ignored the flabbergasted queen and patted the smaller tiger's head while also making sure that she wouldn't get too close to the edge and fall down. Whenever I have some excess magic after playing around all day, I dump it all here and use it to grow the plane. I don't really have anything in mind for it, but I really want to fill as much of this place as possible to get rid of the white nothingness. We're in the middle of the biome right now, and it spreads around 1,000 kilometers in each direction. Though, it's continuing to grow as we speak, so it's more of a rough estimate. 1 to 1,000? The queen didn't seem to stop being shocked anytime soon. Might be getting close to or slightly above 1, 2, actually. The blonde nodded. Why, you're trying to tell me that this plane is 1,200 by 1,200 kilometers wide? Not quite. She lightly shook her head. It's a circle with a diameter of around 2,400 to 2,500 kilometers. No corners and stuff. That only marginally makes it better. Calming down wasn't an option yet. It's hard to convert because it's more rectangular, but that probably could be close to 1/3 of our entire continent and more than half of the combined size of our kingdom. Thanks for telling me how much bigger it still has to become. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. I've been wanting to have a point of reference. That's not the takeaway here. It sure is. Sophia thought otherwise. Ellie thinks so, too. The little tiger joined the blonde. Not that she had any idea what was going on, and she just liked the flower field below them. This is way too much. Kira pointed down. No one should have so much power that they're able to create something of such a size. You should see Myra's place. It's probably many sizes of this entire world. She just called me weak when I complained about making this place was hard. She's the overseer of magic, though. The queen didn't let that argument count. You aren't. Exactly. Sophia nodded. That's why my place is much smaller and more humble than Myra's. Also, if Ellie had focused on landscape rather than trees, she could have easily created a way over 200 kilometers wide plain, as well. Let's go. The little princess raised her arms in anticipation. Later. The blonde smiled at her. Yay. Do you want to create your own forest? Sophia looked at the queen again. Your magic power should be good for a low double-digit kilometer radius, as well. After all, as it's a circle, it gets much more taxing the bigger the radius is, but it's rather easy to create something with a smaller but still impressive size. Even I could do a 10-kilometer wide forest? Kira raised her voice. It should be a good bit more than just 10. And no way. She couldn't believe it. That's way too excessive. That's magic for you. Sophia didn't see an issue with that. I am so envious of how easygoing you are. So, the Queen's Royal Forest project go? Let's reschedule this to another date. Kira was having a hard time. Sure thing. Sophia smiled at her. Okay, if not that, how about we get to the main attraction now, then? Main attractions? The queen didn't seem to like the sound of that. Like I said, this was just a warm-up. The blonde pointed at the massive flowery plain below them. There's another place I created where I really went all out with my magic. This place is nothing compared to that. She gestured down once more. I have a bad feeling about this. Kira took a few steps back. I'd like my sanity to stay with me if possible. Don't worry, it'll only be minor damage to your sanity. It's the frequency of how often we receive damage from you that is the issue. Sophia had nothing to say there. Instead, she simply opened another portal and pointed at it. Let's go. Let's go. Ellie 100% was on her side. Fine. Kira hung her head. Be aware of the fact that I'm going to tell Menzer about your terraforming skills, and we'll get back to you when we're planning a new city or want to use some land that isn't quite perfect. Sounds fun. It didn't have quite the effect on the blonde the queen hoped it would. Alrighty, this way. She pointed at her portal before grabbing Ellie's hand to guide her through it. Saying nothing and just bracing herself, Kira eventually followed after her. Yay, back to the floaties. Ellie's eyes started sparkling the moment she noticed that they went to the countless floating islands above the blonde's incredible cherry blossom forest. Remember, don't get too close to the edge. Sophia just smiled at her. Okay. What is this place? The queen got loud instead. Why are there islands floating in the air everywhere? How, too? That's just what islands do. The blonde got a little cheeky. They float around. They do not. Kira shook her head. Fair enough. She shrugged in return. Magic islands float around. Better? Marginally. You sure are hard to please. Huh, the queen let out a sigh in frustration. Answers, please. What even are magic islands? Just adding the word magic to everything doesn't mean it suddenly makes sense. According to Mira, it absolutely does, though. The blonde scratched her cheek. Though on another scale, I had the same reaction as you many times already when it came to her stuff, but all she ever says is, because of magic. That's all I get, too. That doesn't mean you have to make me suffer from a lack of information, too. Well, there's nothing I can do, though? Sophia shrugged. I don't know how magic islands work, either. I just know that magic is incredibly amazing, so when she told me that making an island float is an easy task for magic, I was easily convinced. The queen paused for a moment while looking around. I saw you doing unbelievable things before. The war, the lake, the plane from earlier. Even Ellie made a forest that shouldn't have been possible according to common sense, especially for a 4-year-old whose magic awakened a few days ago. Oh, she's starting to believe. The blonde gave her a thumbs up. Also, don't just focus on the floating islands. How about you get a little closer to the edge and take a peek down? That's where the real show is. You know that every royal has been taught to become extraordinarily wary when being told to step closer to an edge, you know? She raised an eyebrow. You know I could simply grab you and throw you off myself? Ignoring my magic, I am way stronger than you. There's no need for me to resort to such cheap tricks. Sophia slowly shook her head after hearing this. That was an attempt on trying to make you think more about your wording of things. Kira let out a short sigh. Not going to happen. The blonde stared right at her. Many have tried, and even more have failed. Someday, someone will be successful. The queen could only hope. And you think magic is unbelievable, huh? Sophia's expression got even more cheeky. Spare me with your sass, wow. Kira got closer to the edge of the island they were on and was immediately shocked after looking down. Okay, ignoring the island parts, I can see what you mean. This is insane. That was all the blonde wanted to hear. I'm quite proud of it. I've never seen weeping cherries and blossoms as colorful and vast. It doesn't quite pack as much of a punch as Ellie's massive weeping cherry on a small scale, but the entire picture is just perfect. She was overwhelmed as she continued to look at the never-ending sea of trees below them and how they slowly changed colors from pure white to pink to violet to purple all the way to almost red, seemingly going on forever before eventually disappearing from sight behind a few hills in the far distance. Even Mira was envious of my creation. Her voice became smug again. Well, she made many things incomparably more amazing, but I have the best cherry blossom forest. The bestest. Ellie agreed, as well. Wow. As she needed a moment to gather her words, the queen and the others took a short break to take in the sights some more. Chapter 097, A Common Trait. Sophia was still giving Kira a tour of her domain together with Ellie, and they finally arrived at the blonde's unbelievable cherry blossom forest. There, the queen slowly started to believe and understand that magic really has limitless potential. Calmed down again? They were still on one of the floating islands above the blonde's forest when Sophia got closer to Kira, who seemed lost in watching the scenery below them. Debatable. The queen shrugged in return. You know that Menzer's head would explode if he'd see this? Good thing you're here, huh? Again, debatable. She, too, had sustained some damage from being overwhelmed. Hee hee. How big is this place? My domain or the cherry forest? Sophia tilted her head. The forest. You said that the flower field was just a side project, and this is your main work, so. Ah. The blonde nodded. The plain is much bigger than this place. The other one was basically just growing grass on a flat surface, after all. The forest, with its dense and colorful trees, together with the actual landscaping and the floating islands, was much more costly. It's still a couple 100 kilometers in each direction, but it's nowhere close to 4 digits. That, in a way, is kind of reassuring. Kira seemed a little relieved about it. With the magic I poured into this forest, the flowery plain from before would have ended up being 3 times the size of the continent the beast folk lives on. The cherries easily took 10 times more. She went silent. There was no need to tell me that. You're the one who asked. Sophia raised her voice. True, but a little lie here and there to play things down never hurt anybody. That's not something a queen of a country should say. That's like the most queen-like thing I said today. Kira glared back at her. The whole life of a royal is based on knowing where to omit some details to keep order and peace amongst the folk. Omitting details and lying are 2 very different things. As Sophia's entire being and way of doing things relied on that differentiation, it was very important to her. Sure. She simply stared at the blonde for a moment. Anyway, then do whatever is compatible with your moral compass. And when you find out, you'll complain that I didn't tell you everything. That would be an issue for a later date, though. There's no winning with you, is there? Sophia rolled her eyes. Yes, it's a common trait with tigers. Kira did the same. I did see that one coming. It was more than obvious, after all. Anyway, yeah, you do have a point. The queen scratched her cheek. Both options, telling me everything in fine detail or omitting things, are either bad for my mental health or bad for other reasons. So, because hitting you with the full force from the get-go is easier for me, I went with that. The blonde gave her a thumbs up. Thanks, she didn't seem overly thankful while saying so. I lightly threatened you before, but can we request this service for the kingdom? You want a massive cherry blossom forest for the beast folk? Sophia looked slightly confused. Let's go. Ellie liked the plan. I'm more thinking about the general idea. Kira shook her head. There are many barren places where even the plain from before would be a huge improvement and would turn it into usable land for the kingdom. Ah, I see. The blonde nodded. Well, it would be quite easy, but I'm not sure if that would be a good idea. I mean, terraforming an area the size of a city should be fine, but I have no idea how massive places made by magic behave in the long run. It's fine contained inside my domain and would even be a little fun to play with, but it could end badly for the kingdom. Also, magical grown flora can be quite aggressive and try to grow as much and as far as possible. It might spread to places it shouldn't have. Those are some very concerning arguments. She slightly raised her voice. I like the times where you show you have a great head on your shoulders, though. You mean all the time? No, Kira slowly shook her head while looking right at her. How terribly rude. Sophia started pouting in return. I'm not going to apologize. Anyway, I don't think it's the best of plans for me to do anything too grand for the kingdom in that regard. I don't want to be responsible for the results. Some smaller fun things, sure, general terraforming, too, but not messing too much with the flora. That is more than fair. The queen didn't blame her. It is fairly simple to learn. I would even go as far as calling it one of the easiest uses of magic. You only need a tiny bit of control to produce some great results. Someone with regular powers probably won't be able to do any harm, but could create many wonderful and/or helpful things in return. Do you want to learn how to do it? Ellie can teach Mama. The princess joined the conversation again. Ellie knows how to do it, too. Wouldn't that be something? Sophia patted the head of the little tiger next to her while looking at the queen. She could also show you how diligent she's with magic. Ellie's the diligentest. You sure are. The blonde smiled at her before focusing on Kira again. It seems like a great opportunity, right? It will give her a lot of confidence, as well. Something that is very needed when using magic, because confidence is key. It's proof for you that she's making progress, too. Progress? The princess nodded. You really know how to force someone into agreeing with your plans. She lightly shook her head. There's no way I could say no now. Yay. Ellie and Sophia had the same reaction. I want Ellie to teach me alone, though. Kira faced the blonde. I want to see how she fares without your supervision. Sure thing. She nodded. Ellie will do her best. The princess did so, too. Once they had decided that the princess would try to teach her mother a little, they decided to head back for the time being. I'm home. After returning the two to the capital, Sophia returned to the cottage for the time being. Kinda empty here, huh? Though we have a rare one, so that makes up for it, I guess? She entered the living room and addressed the only individual there. I would like if you wouldn't call me a rare one. Sounding quite unamused, Faye, who was lying on the fluffy rug in the middle of the room, looked back at her while slowly shaking her head. Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll apologize. The blonde just reacted with a smile. You are definitely here the least, are you not? I guess you do have a point putting it that way. The fox had to give it to her. I do enjoy myself some tranquil time the most, and that's a rare commodity in this group. That being said, I very much like the forest fen and the jaguar maid. Tranquil? She tilted her head. What's that? Is it tasty? Exactly. I'm kidding. I know. Where's Mira, by the way? She looked around for a moment. Even rarer than you being here is you being here without her. We aren't always together, you know? Faye's voice turned a little stern. Had a fight? No. Oh, okay. Something about the way she replied made Sophia rethink her idea of prodding any further. Anyway, want to do anything together? You and me? The fox tilted her head. Yes. That's a new one. Exactly. The blonde nodded a couple of times. We haven't done overly much together ever since you and Mira joined us. Okay, I know you only joined because of Chloe, but still. She raised her voice. You and Steph do so many things together. Oh, you want to become fireproof? Faye's ears perked up. We can arrange that. That was not my intention. Not to mention, thanks to Kinnear's boost, I'm fairly sure I already am. We should find out and make sure, though. The fox suddenly felt like playing. Please save your tough love for the little sister, okay? There's plenty of that for both sisters, don't worry. I mean, I do want to find out what you two do during your usual training sessions, Sue. I'm not really into tough stuff, though, so please go easy on me, okay? The older sister is the soft one, huh? She sure is. Sophia strongly moved her head up and down. Well, I guess we can spend the afternoon together. The fox eventually agreed. I'm curious about your magic, and Chloe went to fun earlier, so I'm free. Fenny and Chloe, huh? The tiger tilted her head. I look forward to whatever they come up with. Always looking for entertainment, aren't you? Yes. She had no intention of hiding it. So, do you have anything planned, or did you invite me in the spur of the moment, but you have no idea what to do now? Even you should know the answer to that. Sophia sounded smug about it for some reason. Yes, you are sisters. There's no doubt about that. The fox let out a sigh before standing up from the rug she was lying on until now. All right, let's go. She then walked out of the living room. Let's go. The blonde immediately followed after her, and the duo left the cottage together. Chapter 098, Restraint. Sophia went back to the cottage and ran into Faye there. Taking the opportunity, she suggested they spend some time together because the blonde and the foal had rarely done that in the past. Once the fox agreed, the duo headed out to play and/or train. Oh ho, that's a surprisingly modest-looking place we went to. Faye and Sophia went to the flowery plain inside the blonde's domain when the fox said so while looking around. I'll have you know that everything I created inside my domain so far is relatively normal looking. Didn't you create a forest that is entirely crystallized? Ah. She paused for a moment. Okay, let me correct myself. Everything I created on my own and without the input of others is somewhat normal. Unexpected. Faye looked at her. So, you're a product of bad influence? I wouldn't go that far. She awkwardly scratched her cheek. Okay, this place may look normal at first glance, but it's 1/3 the size of the beastfolk continent. The foal paused for a second while looking around some more. Well, that actually makes me feel at ease, because it sounds more like the girl I came to know. Ahaha. She just chuckled. Come on, it's not too excessive in one way or another. It's contained within my own place, and I just want to make it look nice around here. I didn't say anything, did I? Your expression said all. The blonde got loud. It's quite the feat to read expressions of foals. She sounded impressed. It's not that hard. Anyway, if you really want to make it look nice, you should do something about the area above us. Faye changed the topic and just looked up. The all-white sky is a little hard on the eyes. I'm trying. She raised her voice even more. Do you have any idea how hard that is? I've been together with Mira, the overseer of magic, for longer than your mind can comprehend. The fox stared at her for a second. Yes, I do know. She then nodded. I've accompanied her when she created new sections of her domain and filled it with life. Well, I guess that makes sense. The tiger understood her reasoning. If anything, I'm impressed that your domain is already at this level. Faye nodded a few times in return. You may have the most potent authority in your group, more than me, too, but if you compare it to Mira, you might as well have no authority whatsoever. I'm well aware of that. Sophia started pouting. I know that I'm weak. Admitting that you have a problem is the first step to fixing it, is what I want to say, but, the fox paused for a moment. In your case, it would mean becoming as powerful as an overseer, and that would create many more problems than solve them. Problems? The blonde looked confused. Are there any, aside from sounding like it would be a massive pain beyond the massive powers you wield? I wasn't talking about you. Faye shook her head. It would be a problem for everyone else. Ah. She nodded a few times. Yeah, I would be a menace. Don't admit it so easily. You strike me as someone who likes honesty. The foal stared at her for a second. Both sisters are way too smug. Don't worry, I'm no match to Steph when it comes to that. That is a little reassuring. She didn't sound overly relieved, though. That being said, I focus my ridiculous thoughts on my domain, so it would mostly only be little accidents that could affect the regular world. That's the thing I'm most concerned about. Faye got loud. Your accidents. Okay, that's fair. Sophia had no way to defend herself. Accidents weren't exactly rare with her, after all. Maybe I should try teaching you some restraint, after all. How's that project working out with Steph? The fox went silent again. I think you're more likely to listen to reason, though. Steph's just that uncontrollable, after all. It seems like you're having a great time with her, though. Sure, all you do is complain when she's involved, but it never felt like you were actually upset. Quite the opposite, if you ask me. She smiled at her. I think you're quite similar to Fenny in that regard. Grumpy on the outside, but soft on the inside. I dislike how sharp those sisters are. Ahaha. Sophia liked her reply a lot. All right. Teach me some restraint. She took the challenge. I suddenly have a bad feeling about this. Faye shook her head. Maybe it's better to prioritize on increasing your focus and concentration to reduce your accidents with magic. I'm pretty sure it would be way easier to teach me restraint, but let's go. Aya. She thought she made a smart decision, but Faye quickly noticed her mistake. I'll show no mercy, though. Having no chance to change her mind anymore, the fox gave up with a sigh, and the two got ready to have a magic training session together. For the time being, they stayed in the flowery plain because there was nothing that could be destroyed there. How do you and Steph usually train? Sophia was still curious about that part. Don't worry, I won't tell Chloe about it. That heavily depends on how she's behaving that day. When is she not hyper and overly nosy? The fox stared at her. That point goes to the older sister. So? She had no intentions of letting it go. Give me a taste of how you treat the usual Steph. Alright, that can be arranged. Let's WWOAH. The blonde wasn't able to finish her sentence because she had to dodge a massive pillar of fire that was suddenly speeding towards her. Steph would have tackled this little flame head-on. Faye sounded honestly disappointed. That was a 10 by 10 meters wide inferno. The blonde got loud. No need to go into semantics here. Wow. Sophia had no words. Is that how she became fireproof? That's step one of a very long sequence of events. Her voice turned smug. Steph's a lot more adventurous than you are. Oi. The tiger didn't like that. Well, prove me wrong. The foal showed her a small smirk by lightly lifting the left side of her snout to show a bit of fangs while also closing her left eye. Gore. Let's go. Not only had Faye already unknowingly picked up some of Steph's antics, as had everyone else in the group, but she had also learned how to handle the sisters. To some degree, at least. You totally learned that from WOAH. The blonde was about to tease because she used Steph's catchphrase, but she didn't get the chance because another flaming inferno instantly closed in on her. This time it was faster than Sophia could react, as well, and it swallowed her whole. Alright, let's see if she has what it takes to become fireproof. The fox watched the flames for a while and waited for them to disappear to see how the tiger fared against it. How about the older sister gets the title of fire avoiding? Sophia immediately got loud again once it was safe. As it turned out, she had encased herself in an earthen dome to shield herself from the heat milliseconds before the flames hit her. Your reaction is quite nice. The foal seemed rather impressed. Still, you're playing it a lot safer than Steph. Thank you very much. She decided it was a compliment. It really is a good thing. It's not as entertaining, but I approve of this way of doing things. I'm sorry that I'm not as entertaining as Steph. You're even more of a pain to deal with, though. Faye wasn't a fan of her jumpy mood. Am I really, though? The blonde didn't believe her. Well, debatable. She wasn't sure of it herself. Anyway, playing it safe is a good thing. Your execution was far from ideal, though. Faye slowly shook her head. Your reaction time is commendable, but your decision-making under pressure is debatable at best. What's that supposed to mean? Sophia felt slightly offended. Shielding yourself from fire by putting something between you and it, dirt in my case, is a very effective method. You're able to freely teleport inside your domain. She looked right at her. Not only is that even faster, but it will guarantee that you stay out of harm's way. Ah. The tiger froze. Now that you mention it, I do have that ability. She awkwardly scratched her cheek. You are right, I tend to simply act rather than consider my options beforehand. Something else you and your sister have in common. Ahaha. I mean, it wasn't a wrong decision, and it got the job done, but there would have been many more elegant and simpler solutions to the problem. Yeah, that's true. Sophia could only agree with her assessment. Okay, let's try and see if I can teach that into your thick skull. It would be great if something sticks, and we can use it as a foundation to build further skills later on. How are we going to do that, though? The tiger tilted her head. If there's one thing I'm confident about, it's my inability to learn these kinds of things. With force, of course. Faye's expression turned into a smirk again. I'll keep attacking you until I deem your countermeasures as the best possible solution in this situation. And, whenever I disagree, my attack will become fiercer. I see why Steph gained so many passive defense effects. She's a slow learner. Or you're a bad tea, She suddenly was hit by a powerful gust of wind that almost swept her away. Afterward, the duo glared at each other for a second before getting ready to test Faye's plan. Chapter 099, Shrewd. Sophia and Faye started their long-awaited training session, and the fox immediately found some flaws in the blonde's way of doing things. Unfortunately, the foal was rather trigger-happy, and the method she chose for teaching the tiger was violence. Having chosen violence, Faye wasted no time and sent a wave of flames toward the blonde, who catapulted herself up high into the air to jump over the fire. Landing back on her feet a few moments later, all that remained was scorched earth all around her. Nothing of the previously lush green and flowery plain in a 100-meter radius was left. Only a single carbonized black tree around 20 meters next to her hadn't turned fully into ash. Once more, commendable reaction time, but your solution leaves a lot to desire. Easier said than done. Sophia got loud. I see death approaching me, and my body reacts on its own. A little bit of fire like that won't kill you. She shook her head in return. My mind thinks so, though. During my life in the other world, this would have been more than enough to kill me 20 times over. The tiger only raised her voice more. In a calm moment, I know that I'm super tough, but I tend to forget about that during such times. And we're going to teach your mind that it's stupid. I already know that. Sophia glared at the foal. No need to teach me the obvious, no matter how stupid I am. That's not what I was trying to say. The fox rolled her eyes. We're going to teach your mind that panicking isn't the solution, and many variables have changed. I assume we're doing that by using more violence? Lots of it. Faye nodded. How much do you care about this place to stay intact? I mean, we already burned a lot of it, but I don't want to overdo it without your permission. A bit late to ask that, indeed. Sophia also looked at their burned surroundings. It's fine, though. That's why we're here in the first place. This place is easy to fix and so big that a few kilometers of it being destroyed would have had no impact on the overall picture. Music to my ears. It was exactly what she wanted to hear. Oh, I just had a great idea. The blonde's eyes started sparkling. I have a bad feeling about that. Shush. The tiger didn't like her negativity. I don't mind this area getting destroyed by us, but you're going to fix it afterward. She looked right at her. I want a biome created by you in my domain. Aren't you a shrewd one? The shrewdest. I wouldn't go that far, but it definitely was a good try. Come on, please. She stared at her with big, upturned eyes. Your puppy eyes aren't nearly as good as the ones of your younger sister. Faye just shook her head. See it as an added challenge for you to make things more interesting. How so? The faster and better you teach me, the less of this place gets destroyed, and the smaller your biome can be. You can show everyone how good your teaching is. Come on, you have nothing to lose. Please. She started begging. It's just a fun little thing inside my biome that has no impact on the normal world. There's no reason to say no. Can I do it together with Chloe? Sure, make it a family activity. Alright, fine. Faye caved in. Don't expect anything fancy or too out of the ordinary, though. Didn't you just say you want to do something together with Chloe? She tilted her head. As if she'd let you make anything boring. The fox froze for a moment. You know what? You win this round. The tiger liked her reaction. Oi. Her grin only lasted a second, though. Another barrage of fire formed around her and swallowed the blonde whole. You're at least 1,000 years too early and way too green behind your ears to sass me, little miss, oh. She sounded smug for a moment as she watched the 50-meter tall and wide ball of dark red and orange fire in the position Sophia was in, but she quickly went silent after noticing the flaming inferno was growing. The 50-meter diameter quickly became 100 meters, and then doubled into a 200-meter big ball of bluish-white fire. It didn't stop there, either. As the flames got brighter, hotter, and louder, the ball just kept growing and growing, until it didn't. Then, everything turned silent for a fraction of a second before it became loud, very loud. The 500-meter wide ball of blue fire that suspiciously looked like a sun exploded. Everything as far as the eye could see and more was instantly turned into nothingness. Even the dirt below the plane was gone. The explosion, heat, and force had revealed the default texture of Sophia's domain that had been hidden under a deep layer of earth just moments ago. Only 2 spots of it were left. Towering roughly 100 meters above the white floor, ground zero, where the ball of fire had started, looked completely untouched, as well as a little patch of grass and flowers around 200 meters away from it. On those patches, Sophia and Faye were standing while being fully unharmed. One of them looked visibly shaken, though. Sassing someone has nothing to do with age. Lightly dusting herself off, Sophia looked around while seeming to be rather proud of herself. Does this count as an adequate reaction, or should we train some more? Faye wasn't quite able to reply yet. Too much? The blonde innocently tilted her head while lightly jumping to the island the fox was standing on. Are you insane? After around a minute of being stun-locked, the fox eventually got loud. A little, and sometimes. Sophia couldn't really deny it. What even happened? I might have gotten surprised by your sudden attack once more and panicked, but then I overheard your green behind my ears comment, and I disagreed with that. I know you like to overdo things, but there are limits. Faye only raised her voice even more. I got upset. There's upset, and then there's this. She gestured all around her. Well, I have some slight issues with holding back. I'm also kinda impulsive and have trouble holding back my emotions at times because they got messed with. Sophia used a rare excuse based on the boosts Kinnear used on her. Is that so? The fool stared at her for a few seconds. Okay, be honest, you just wanted to flex your magic skills on me because I maybe was treating you a bit too much like a child, didn't you? I mean, that's not true. The blonde scratched her cheek in return. You really are crazy. She had nothing to add. To be fair, you've been with Steph a lot lately, so you should be used to it already. No. Faye vehemently shook her head. You told me so, and the dog said the same, and I believed you too for the longest time, but Steph's definitely the tamer sister here. How rude. Rude? The fox first stared at her before her head wandered around to look at their surroundings, or the lack thereof, after the blonde had created a supernova and erased everything around them. How big was the explosion in the first place? How far has the heat and fire spread while destroying everything? Let's see. Sophia closed her eyes for a second. Everything's gone in a 50-kilometer radius around it. More has been burned, though. No way. Yes way. That's too big of a radius. I mean, I did use all of my internal authority, as well as a lot of ambient magic as a booster, so it seems about right to me. You do know that there are supposed to be upper limits for the use of magic, right? Faye stared right at her. Yeah, but those don't apply to me. Sophia shook her head. My magic is based on Kinnear's authority, and that doesn't care about the natural limitations of magic. Ah, right, Faye's eyes turned lifeless for a second. I forgot that you were a ticking time bomb. Hey. The blonde started pouting. I'll have you know that ever since Kinnear told me about it, I've been listening to my inner tiger. What's that supposed to mean? The fox sounded confused. When I turned myself into a tiger, my tiger bits came with the authority of a regular beast folk. They let me sense the limitations a regular magic user has to abide by. It then feels like I shouldn't be doing whatever I was doing. I can still do it, but I know I'm doing something unnatural. Oh. Faye nodded. I honestly underestimated you there. You really put a lot more thought into the situation than I would have given you credit for. Rude. But thank you very much. The blonde wasn't sure how to feel. Though, Mira also told me that magic behaves a little differently inside domains, anyway. Like, it's less reactive and doesn't go ham when the density of ambient magic gets too high. Really? I didn't know that. The fox tilted her head. It would make sense, though, as some parts of Myra's domain are flooded with so much ambience that you can't even see properly. Ah, right. You can see the sparkly particles, too. Yes. She nodded. Mira kind of infected me with the ability at one point because she wanted me to understand magic better. That's why Chloe inherited it, too. Infected sure is a way to put it. I still remember how surprised everyone was when they found out that I could see magic, and I thought everyone could. I can imagine. Perks of not being native to this world, huh? Sure, let's call it perks. Sophia rolled her eyes. Ahaha. The fox had to chuckle at that. Anyway, back to the domain rules. Magic has some basic rules here, but from what I've understood, it can be a lot more liberal with them. That is very concerning. Faye suddenly became a little uneasy. Even within its limitations, it can be very dangerous. I actually agree there. I love my domain, so I absolutely don't want anything bad to happen to or in it. Sophia felt the same. Luckily, Mira explained to me that I can give magic my own rules inside the domain as long as they don't contradict the general rules that still apply to it here. Really? The foal raised her voice. That's massive. Overseer domains are something else. Did you already set up any rules? 2, yes. The tiger nodded. One of them is that my domain can't accidentally explode from using too much or the wrong magic. She then paused and looked around at the nothingness that was left after her earlier actions. I mean, events that could destroy the whole domain, not just smaller parts. With your friends, that was a wise decision. Faye liked her precaution there. What's the other rule you established? No one can get hurt inside my domain. Sophia showed the fox her brightest smile. I love my friends, and I don't want them to get hurt. This place is for having fun and fun only. No consequences. Period. Her smile only got brighter. That being said, I don't mean scratches or other minor injuries. Those are part of the experiences, but no one can get hurt in a way that would have lasting consequences. Magic will actively prevent this from happening as long as you're inside my domain. There's one exception, though. The blonde suddenly turned serious. As soon as you're acting with real malicious intent towards something or someone, this protection is gone. Wow. The foal needed a moment. What's this malicious intent exception about, though? Are you having doubts about any of your friends? Just a precaution. Sophia shook her head. Mira said that no one can't enter my domain unless I allow them to. Still, if someone I don't know ever manages to make their way inside, I don't want them to be protected by my rules if they're trouble. Again, wow. Faye sounded even more impressed. I'm really sorry that I've underestimated you so much. You're exceptionally more thoughtful than I had expected. She nodded a few times as she approved of her. Loving your friends and family so much that you created an environment for them where they can't get hurt is something else. Something I 100% support. Thank you for letting my Chloe be a part of it. She liked her dedication a whole lot. You're welcome. The tiger just smiled at her. It also means that as long as you don't want to actually hurt staff, you can train with her really hard when staying in my domain. You're too good to me. The fox was touched by her generosity. Sisterly love is beautiful, too. Thank you very much for the approval of my techniques. Sure. She gave her a thumbs up. Oh, but that also means I don't have to hold back when trying to teach you, huh? Faye's expression turned into a slight smirk. Same goes for me. She returned the smirk while she gestured all around her. Ah. The fox also glanced at the absolute nothingness they were in after the tiger had effortlessly destroyed everything in the vicinity. After this flood of information, the duo decided to take a short break while also relocating to a nicer place for the time being. Chapter 100, Worries of a Mother. Faye's choice of using violence to teach Sophia was met with some violence from the blonde in return. As a result of that, she created a small sun, exploded it, and eradicated a part of her domain in a radius of 50 kilometers around them, together with severely burning parts of it even further away. Afterward, the tiger explained some peculiarities of her domain to the fox, like the rules she created that her domain can't explode from failed experiments, or how no one can get seriously hurt as they're protected by magic. Okay, this place is quite a bit nicer. After the flowery plain they were on was annihilated, the duo relocated to one of the floating islands above the blonde's cherry forest. Specifically, it was the first island Blue showed her with the little river, the massive weeping cherry, and the hammock under it. There, Faye got closer to the edge to get a good view of the forest. I agree. Sophia, who had gotten comfortable in the hammock, felt the same while smiling at her. I'm looking forward to whatever biome you come up with in the place that got destroyed. You're the one that erased the place from existence. So? The blonde shrugged. Our agreement was that you're going to fix the damages done to the place. Whose damages was never part of it. You little s. Faye didn't finish her sentence and just glared at the smug tiger. That was your plan from the beginning, wasn't it? That's why you overdid it by so much, right? Well, she scratched her cheek. I wasn't lying when I said I got surprised and then a little upset, but I might have omitted the idea that I came up with that little detail halfway through fueling that flaming inferno with every bit of authority and ambient magic I could grab. You are at least 10 times worse than your little sister. The fox couldn't believe her. I know Steph pretty well and how good she's at tricking people. Sophia shook her head a few times. There's zero chance that she didn't try to trick you before. Not on that level. Steph's really trying to win over the future mother-in-law if she's holding back that much, huh? The blonde was impressed by her sister's ability to play nice. Don't call me that. Faye just got louder. You do know that there's nothing you can do if those two want it, right? Sophia raised an eyebrow as she looked at the mother of her sister's girlfriend. In response, the foal sat down on her hind legs and hung her head without saying a single word. Most damage I did today, huh? The tiger felt a little guilty. What would you do in my position? Faye looked right at her. Imagine your possible future daughter found a partner you never met even once before they started dating, and you had no idea who they were. On top of that, their personality is the exact opposite of yours, too. I would be happy my baby found something she all loves. Her left eye twitched a few times, and she almost bit her lips twice, but Sophia managed to get the sentence out somewhat properly. You just called the future partner of your kid a something. Ah. The blonde only then noticed her mistake. Also, Maya's not here, so you can be honest. The foal naturally saw through her lousy lie. Still on the hammock, Sophia went silent while closing her eyes. A few moments later, a dark shadow enveloped the floating island they were on. Before long, it was shrouded in a pitch-black sphere of black nothingness that was the exact opposite of the domain around them. Yeah, that's the reaction I was expecting. Faye calmly looked at the silently raging tiger before addressing her. I would be glad if you turned off the darkness magic again soon. It's quite an unpleasant feeling to have, especially when it's used by such an experienced individual. I know, because I'm fairly skilled at it, too. The fox seemed to be faring rather well with the pressure caused by the darkness magic, but she still wasn't enjoying it. What do you mean? Sophia opened her eyes again, and the darkness was gone. Sorry, I rested my eyes for a moment. Did something happen? You don't have to keep up that act, you know? The fox rolled her eyes. I fully and 100% support your perfectly adequate reaction to my question. She may be serious, but even more than that, the fox was ruthless above anything. Ahaha. Scratching her cheek, the tiger got off her hammock and walked over to the fox. There, she sat down on the ground before her to get on the same line of sight. How's my sister still alive? Imagining what you've just said was enough to make me think about some things. Enough that it makes me scared about having kids. She's sturdy. The fool gave her a dry reply. That's true. Well, it helps that Steph's a good girl. A genuinely good one, I mean. Faye looked back at her. She's exhausting to deal with at times, but it's clear that her heart's in the right place. Steph is the best, that is true. Sophia was quite proud of her sister. I don't know if I would go that far, but I have to agree that Chloe made a decent choice. That was all she could admit to. It's just that we're talking about my baby here, so my feelings will never change. It didn't help that they started dating while I was away, or how Mira pushed them together without telling me. Yeah, I'm scared when thinking about the idea of my future child possibly getting a partner and how I'd react, but adding that to the mix. I already know that I'm overprotective, so I have a bad feeling about that. The tiger looked highly awkward. We're not so different, you and I, aren't we? Faye was sympathizing with her. True, we're exactly the same. The blonde lightly rolled her eyes. Aside from the part where the other half of our personalities are polar opposites, huh? To put it into your words, minor differences, right? The fox had a bit of a playful side to her, too. Sure. Sophia smiled at her. If you're still around with us when it's time for me to raise my daughter, I hope I can count on you. Sure, I'll teach you everything you should not do. Faye vigorously shook her head. There's so much we did wrong with her. You watched our worst mistakes collapse live, as well. You know about the disastrous decisions Mira and I made and how we essentially robbed her of one mother. The blonde paused for a moment. Well, knowing what not to do sounds pretty good to me. Knowing it's bad advice, and being able to do the opposite, is far from the worst. I was mainly talking about teaching my restraint when it comes to the possible future partner of my daughter. I can try. Faye nodded. If you're not busy being overprotective of your future grandchild, that is. Sophia just had to do it. Judging by her expression, which was a mix between shock and terror, it was the first time the fox had ever thought about that possibility. A moment later, black nothingness began to ooze out of her body and quickly covered the whole island in a dark haze. We really aren't so different, huh? The tiger scratched her cheek while watching the spectacle for a little while. I guess I have to apologize to Steph later for making Faye aware of this little detail. Only if you have time to tell her before I kill that dog. The fool wasn't happy about the revelation. Steph's only 50% responsible for a future where that happens, you know? Faye hung her head and the black haze slowly disappeared again. You're the worst. I've heard that one before. The blonde shrugged and then changed the subject. By the way, speaking of raising Chloe and the mistakes you made, how is it going? Has she forgiven you and Mira for the secrets and lies? Last time I mentioned it to her, she still sounded a little, salty. Yes, that sums it up rather well. Faye sounded a little awkward. Things are mostly back to normal, and she's even at the point where she actually called Mira mom a couple of times. She's gotten quite close to her, but every now and then, she remembers what we did, and will get punished with nothing but pouting by her for the rest of the day. To be fair, I can understand her. Yes. Faye nodded. We're not upset in the slightest, because we've earned it. In fact, we've earned a lot more than that. She paused for a second. It would still be nice if we're able to get over it eventually. Do you have any ideas to help her? Sophia got curious. There's one thing I haven't tried yet. She sounded rather reluctant for some reason. Let's go. The tiger instantly cheered her on. What's the plan? Well, ever since she found out that I was in a humanoid form when I had her, Chloe has been begging me to show it to her. Right. Sophia clapped her hands. I remember that. You said that you need time to relearn it again, wasn't it? Yes. How much longer do you need? I've been able to do it again since last week. Awesome. Let's go show her immediately. She was excited about it. It's obvious that she loves your natural form, but your humanoid version was the one that gave birth to her, right? Seeing where she came from is guaranteed to make her feel even closer to you. That's what I'm hoping for, too, but, her voice trailed off towards the end. But? The blonde tilted her head. Back when I first learned how to transform myself, Mira helped me a lot with the magic, and many of her personal tastes ended up being incorporated into my humanoid form. You have no idea how curious I am right now. Sophia's eyes were sparkling. Why am I not surprised about that reaction? Show me. She only got more excited. I'm confident in saying that Chloe and I are rather similar, so you can test her reaction with me. It is true, you're both very nosy. Faye rolled her eyes. As much as it pains me, you do have a point there. It might be beneficial to show it to someone else first before the big reveal. Yay! Sophia jumped on her feet and clapped her hands. What do you need to do it? For the transformation itself, nothing. The fox shook her head. I need a portal to the cottage to go to Myra's domain first, though. I have a set of clothes there. I know you all have no problems with being nude around each other, but I pass for the time being. Aren't you nude right now, too? Sophia scratched her cheek. I have fur right now, and my current body has no bits that common decency demands to be covered when in the company of others. Fair enough. Luckily for you, the clothes I have were unfortunately provided by Mira and come in a similar design, meaning they're rather revealing. Could you not make me sound like a pervert? The tiger didn't like her wording. Portal, please. She didn't even acknowledge her complaints. Gore. Growling for a moment, she then still did as told and created one for the fox to pass through. Roughly 20 minutes had passed since the fox disappeared, and Sophia was about to get her because she was starting to feel ditched when someone new suddenly appeared through the portal. It was a girl the blonde had never seen before. She was a little shorter than the tiger and somewhere in between Chloe's and Steph's height. Just like the dog girl, she had short hair, but the hair of the new girl had a little more volume and was white with many red accents and highlights that covered around half of her entire hair. Her body as a whole matched Steph in terms of her figure and chest size, as well. Short, a little on the sporty side, modest, but cute and squishy looking nonetheless. On top of her head were two long and pointy fox ears that had a red tip each that perfectly harmonized with the girl's blood-red eyes that came with slit pupils like most of them. Looking a little embarrassed from presenting herself like that, the girl seemed a little fidgety with a slight blush on her cheeks. Her clothes seemed to be an abridged version of Myra's black shrine outfit. The black top with red accents was relatively short and showed even more than the nine-tailed fox did, which was then combined with a short skirt in the same color scheme. She was also wearing wide-rimmed arm sleeves as well as thigh-high overknees in the same primarily black with red highlights type of color scheme, together with short black boots that had a red top part. On the side of her skirt and the outside of her sleeves, little cherry blossom pins that looked like the hairpin Chloe and the various cherry ornaments Mira was wearing were attached. All of those already outstanding features paled against the massive tail that was attached to the back of her body. The tip was a dark, almost blood-like red that quickly faded into a pure white with some red specks here and there for the remaining 2/3 of her tail. The shape was nearly a carbon copy of Chloe's, with it looking like incredibly fluffy cotton candy and the base easily being way wider than her torso. There was one more difference besides the coloring, though. The tail of the new girl was even bigger and fluffier than Chloe's. It had at least 30% more volume than the one of the pink fox. So? Sounding somewhat nervous, Faye addressed the blonde. What do you think? You are way too adorable. There was nothing else that was going through Sophia's head right now. Afterward, the tiger needed a small break to collect her thoughts on what she was seeing right now to give the incredibly cute fox girl in front of her a proper reply to her question.